Hello, I'm Dr. Rick Gordon. Doctor, astronaut, astro-doctor. I travel the galaxy with my hospital, Space Med, helping out the people of the universe, battling alien scum and solving space mysteries. This is Space Med. Space Med.
What if I told you he wasn't the greatest? He was even better. That to reach the dazzling highs, sometimes you need to traverse through the lowest of lows. What if I told you that one moment could change the trajectory of human history? That one idea could inspire a generation. And that one man could overcome immense tragedy to achieve greatness.
There's no one like Rick. I mean that guy. That guy was on a different level.
There was just something about Rick. He was just different. He was like something no one had ever seen or will ever see again.
Dr. Rick Gordon is just in a league of his own. Rick stands alone.
BSPN Films presents 30 for 30. The Good Doctor. A Rick Gordon story.
Rick Gordon. What can be said about this guy that hasn't already been said a million times? He was the greatest. You could have a football field filled with all the doctors in the world. And you could put all the doctors on one half and on the other half, you just have Dr. Rick Gordon. He's that special. That's great. There are certainly tons of stories I have personally heard about Rick.
I mean, let's be real. The guy was simply not human.
I think what's really shocking about Dr. Rick Gordon is there are so many outlandish stories. Most of these stories are seemingly very weird. And what's crazy is, for the most part, all of them are actually true. I heard a story that as a freshman in high school he dunked a basketball. Which obviously isn't that shocking. What is shocking is that he did it barefoot. I've just never heard of someone dunking a basketball barefoot. I am sure it's not that much different than dunking with shoes, but it's just not detail for the story.
I once was on a safari to Africa with Rick and some of my other less important students. While on the safari we noticed an elephant lying on the side of the trail. It was making these odd burping sounds. Rick leapt to action and gave the elephant some sort of elephant CPR. This was only Rick's first year in med school. We had yet to teach him human CPR, much less some sort of elephant CPR. After the elephant regained consciousness, Rick could tell the elephant's trunk needed some sort of reconstructive surgery. So Rick takes apart the Jeep we are riding and constructs a makeshift CMC machine. He then uses this CMC machine to create a new trunk for the elephant. I said, "Rick, where did you learn how to build a CMC machine out of Jeep parts?" And he said, "I didn't know how to build a CMC machine out of Jeep parts. I taught myself how to, when I saw that dying elephant. I just don't know anyone else like that. Anyone else like Rick Gordon."
Has Professor Fluffernutter told you about the elephant story yet? That was so awesome. As soon as Rick finished giving the elephant the new trunk, he rebuilt the Jeep and we were on our way.
I once saw Rick restart a patient's heart by staring deeply into their eyes.
As a 15-year-old kid, Rick entered himself into a hot dog eating contest as a prank. He ended up winning the contest by eating 72 hot dogs in a minute. Afterwards he said, quote, "I was really hungry. It was truly a sight to behold. Rick has saved my life countless times before, but none like this one time, when we were in our dorm room and I was choking on a chicken nugget." Without hesitation Rick leaped into action and slapped the nugget out of my mouth. I owe my life to Rick Gordon. And I have been cleaning his house once a week ever since to repay him. I once heard a story about Rick. He was hanging out in his neighborhood when he noticed an errant lawnmower barreling at a little girl. He sprinted to the girl and pushed her out of the way. He then actually fought the lawnmower and won. I never knew it was even possible to beat a lawnmower in a fight.
Rick is a very honorable and honest man. When he was just 8 years old, his father gave him a hatchet. Rick proceeded to cut his father's favorite cherry tree. When his father found out, he confronted Rick. He said, "Rick, did you chop down my cherry tree?" Rick said, "I cannot tell a lie. Yes, it was me who chopped down your cherry tree." This inspired me and many others to be more honest throughout our lives.
Dr. Rick Gordon has lived a very inspiring and influential life. Of course, this all began when he was a child. Rick grew up in a small town in America with his brother, Nick. They were raised by their mother, Gladys. Rick never knew his father. His mother Gladys has said she doesn't know who or what his father is.
Nope, I don't know who or what his father is. I never had any boyfriends or nothing. One day, I was just pregnant, and 8 weeks later, my 2 boys popped out. Cutest little things you've ever seen.
The mysterious circumstances surrounding Rick's father did not deter him in any way. Rick and his brother were the best of buds and did not let their lack of a father put them down.
They really were good boys. They were very sweet and smart. They really were the best of buds.
Rick and his brother Nick were the best of buds growing up. They did everything together. When they got to high school, they were both star athletes. They both played basketball, football, and baseball. They led their school to multiple state championships and would get Division I offers from many schools. The Gordon twins decided to take an alternative approach. They decided to join the newly established Jupiter State University, a newly created school located on Jupiter's moon, Europa. The Jupiter State astronauts would immediately be granted Division I status. They decided to play basketball and football there, where they continued their dominant ways.
The Gordon twins at Jupiter State? Oh my god. They were incredible. People always speculated they were on something. There's really no other way to explain it. I mean, it's one thing to dominate one sport, but to dominate 2 sports the way they did, it's unheard of. 2 sporters. Nick even played baseball too. 3-sporter. They were insane. It was as if they had some sort of telepathy. They were so in sync.
I modeled my game after Rick's. He was the best.
Those kids were incredible. They certainly made my job a lot easier. Between the 2 of them, Rick was always more technically proficient, with Nick being the more gifted one athletically. Rick played quarterback and point guard. This makes sense. It really fits his personality. Hotshot, maverick, leader. He was born to be the face of a team. The best part about Nick, he was always willing to be number 2. The second fiddle. He didn't care. He just loved playing sports with his brother. They really made the ultimate duo.
Jupiter State soon became a sporting powerhouse, gaining national attention and top recruits every year. The Gordon twins won the national championship for basketball their senior year, making history.
Yeah, I was on the national championship team. It was a great team. Everyone played their role and did what needed to be done, even if they could have been a bigger part of the team.
Not only was Rick dominating the college athletic scene, but he was also dominating in the classroom.
Rick was easily the best student I've ever had. He was intuitively great at every subject. He was able to act purely on instincts. He certainly wasn't studying. He didn't even go to class. He didn't need to. He finished top of the class. He was that good.
Yeah, I was Rick's roommate in college. We had some good times together. Here's us freshman year. And here's us sophomore year. Junior year. And here's senior year. Rick was legendary on campus. Coolest guy in school. Everyone loved him. Everyone wanted to be his friend. He ruled the school. He was top dog.
Rick Gordon was on top. He had won the NCAA championship. He finished school as the valedictorian. And he even had a building on campus named in his honor. Nothing was going to slow Rick down. Until tragedy struck.
It's horrible, really.
I don't even know how to even make sense out of it.
Rick's brother, Nick, had gone to the hospital to get a routine procedure done on his shoulder.
The kid was just going in for Tommy John surgery. We had just finished baseball season. He was our star pitcher. Then he got sent to that goddamn idiot doctor.
Nick Gordon had gone to the hospital for routine Tommy John surgery. His doctor, who was supposed to perform the surgery, was in the middle of a psychotic break.
That psycho doctor was all hyped up on dog tranquilizer. He gave Nick enough sedatives to kill our horse. Nick's heart stopped and he died. And if I ever find that piece of shit doctor, I'll kill that son of a bitch. You hear me? I'll kill you, you son of a bitch.
It's just hard to think about Nick. He was my boy. I'm sorry.
Rick's brother Nick Gordon had died. This was an extreme setback. Rick and Nick were always best buds. Rick was devastated.
Rick was like really torn up about it, which obviously made me also be very torn up. The whole situation was just really crappy.
To most people, this tragedy would set them on a downward spiral, possibly causing them to resort to abusing drugs as their life falls apart around them. This was now the case for Rick.
Rick decided at that moment that he would become a doctor to prevent anyone else from dying.
Rick had graduated from Jupiter State with general studies degree. I told him it would be another 6 years of school minimum to become a doctor. Of course, Rick being Rick, only needed 1 year.
I didn't even know it was possible to become a doctor in 1 year. I mean, who is this guy? Rick graduated from med school with a lot of ambition. He wasn't going to let anything stop him from achieving his goal. He was determined and driven to become the best doctor.
And that he did. He was hired by Space Med fresh out of school. Rick's drive and ambition was unparalleled. His ability to constantly push his limits drove him to superstardom. Soon he was seen as the next big thing in the doctor world. He was back to his comfort zone, being on top. The fame and glory didn't distract him though. He continued to push the boundaries of medicine.
Rick was absolutely going off. He was unstoppable. He was curing patients left and right. He was an absolute dynamo.
Rick was setting save records, the likes of which the world had never seen before. His patient record was impeccable. I was going to the operating theater every chance I could, just to see the greatness on display.
Rick was putting up stats we had never seen from a doctor before. I'm pretty sure at one point he cured over 200,000 patients in a row. It might still be going, no one really knows because it's so hard to count that high. Rick was killing the game. We haven't seen anyone dominate the way he was. To put it into perspective, Rick had become one of the top doctors at the same time as I was still in med school. Rick was just different. A lot, and I mean a lot, of guys tried to copy his game. He was just doing things no other doctor could do. I mean, just look at Rick's stats his first few years. They are unheard of.
Rick was putting up numbers that no doctor had ever put up before. What was doubly impressive was he was doing this in his first few years of being a doctor. While most people his age were still in med school, Rick was on the verge of becoming an all-time great.
At this point, Rick had made it. He was seen by many as the top doctor in the game. I think Rick had definitely moved into my top 5. If I was picking who I would most likely start a hospital with, Rick would be my top choice.
Rick had made it. He was on top. But despite this, it seemed there was still something missing. Despite the success and acclaim, it seemed Rick still had a gaping hole in his life. While he had achieved greatness, he had done it without his brother by his side. Rick was without a best bud. Enter pilot Joe Miller. A simple-minded, drunken pilot for Space Med. Joe and Rick became fast buds.
Yeah, me and Rick are best buds. I met Rick in the food court. I asked him if he was going to finish his tater tots. He was like, no, you can take them. Then I was like, hell yeah. I knew from then on, me and Rick would be tight. I was like, that guy's the man.
Rick and Joe have been best buds pretty much since they started at SpaceMed.
Joe's not that cool.
Rick and Joe, yeah well, those guys are my boys. They've been best buds a long time. Rick rocks, bro.
Rick had found his best bullet. With Joe by his side, Rick was able to continue his push for greatness.
Rick had done it. He was on my Dr. Mount Rushmore for sure. He has surpassed being a top 5 doctor in the game and is now a top 5 doctor of all time. Rick was already a great doctor before he became best buds with Joe. But I think every great doctor needs a best bud. Once Rick and Joe became buddies, Rick became unstoppable.
So, after all his success, after breaking records and destroying expectations, after all the saved patients, who is Rick Gordon?
I think there's really no question. Rick's the GOAT. Rick has been able to achieve more in a single operating room than most doctors achieve in an entire career.
Rick will forever be my hero. Through adversity, thick and thin, Rick is the greatest.
I'm pretty sure Rick invented the word cowabunga. Rick has made a lasting impact on the world of medicine. He has changed the game in a way that no doctor ever has. Long after all of us are dead and gone, Rick's name and legacy will live on.
Rick Gordon has done the unthinkable. He has become more than just a man. He has become a legend. His legacy will live on for centuries, and he will go down as the greatest of all time. That's why Rick Gordon is the good doctor. Next time on BSPN 30 for 30. With the first pick, Alpha Centauri selects Snazzy McJazz. What if I told you he wasn't just the first pick? He was the first from Earth. That breaking barriers can be even harder than it sounds. What if I told you that Earth was ready to enter the universe of space sports? And that the race for space would start with one man? BSPN Films presents One Small Step for Man, Earth's first spaceball player.